Hi everyone and welcome back. Thank you so much for coming on this week. I am so excited to be coming on like we do every week here on YouTube on Friday nights for live premieres that happen at 6 p.m. Pacific time. This week I'm coming on to talk about the new moon in Aquarius, and I've touched on it already a little bit in last week's video about the Grand Aquarius stellium that happened and is happening as we're talking now. And I thought since it's such a significant, huge deal of a transit that it deserved 2 weeks of, speculation and thought on. So last week's video, which I'll link below and in the top right-hand corner, is more so about the more macrocosmic effects of the Aquarius stellium in general. And this week's video is going to focus more on the new moon in Aquarius and maybe some more of the more personal microcosmic aspects of that transit. And, having all of this other stellium in Aquarius, what type of effect is that going to have more personally? So I kind of want to set a more calm and tranquil healing space for this video. And I'm probably going to talk for quite a while about it just because I want to really get into all of the deeper elements of this transit and how that's maybe expressing deep within through this new moon that we're having. So long video if you guys maybe have a great cup of coffee or tea to sit down with or something to do while you're listening to this. I think that might be best for this video because all of the weekly live premieres have been like really wild and really, fun. And this week I just kind of want to give it a kind of nicer, more slow, calming vibe because this Aquarius energy is so electric and so, like Vulcan that I think we have to offset it, okay? Also, Keen has been kind enough to sponsor this video as well, just like last week. So, I don't do that many sponsorships, but you guys seem to enjoy the previous video. And I am going to link below a link where you can get the Keen service, $1.99 for your first 10 minutes. And like I covered last week, you can choose one of their many advisors. They've got so many, all kinds of different services you can get from tarot to mediumship to astrology. And it's really personal. Like you can really personalize your own experience. How are you feeling? What are you coming to the table with? And they can help to find someone that is well suited for that. I don't personally have time for private readings right now. I'm going to offer them again in the future, I think, but it's so busy. So I wanted to offer you guys an alternative. And Keen has really been kind enough to also partake in that. So I'm going to link that below to disclaim that this is, of course, a sponsored video by Keen. And whenever you use that link or purchase a service from Keen through that link, you are also supporting this YouTube channel, which is a huge help. So it's very vicarious and nice in that way. And I so appreciate anyone who might be willing to give Keen a chance in order to support this YouTube channel as well. Plus, finding an advisor that you might be able to work with again in the future. I think it's a really nice sponsorship. So thank you so much to Keen. Let's move on, everyone. Again, moving into a nice kind of tranquil healing space to talk about the new moon in Aquarius. We have to understand, I think, the significance of our lives now, okay? We have to not be afraid of our projection. We have to not be afraid of the choices that we've made. And we have to really beware of trying to completely detach ourselves from our past experiences. Yet we need a type of new goal or new version of ourselves, I think, to strive for. So finding that balance seems to be the key that this new moon in Aquarius is trying to strike up. And I'm really excited to be talking about it tonight, actually, because the opportunities that so many of us have for real, true healing with this new moon in Aquarius are so abundant and numerous. Like I said in last week's video, there are healed people now. Like some people might not even be admitting it to themselves yet, but they have had some type of healing, or they have had some type of miraculous recovery, perhaps from an old illness or an old way of thinking, but perhaps this hasn't quite been communicated to them yet. So I want you to really take time right as you're listening to this video to think about, are there some things that have just resolved, okay? Are there some things that I was really worried about really concerned about, really feeling unwell about? And have they maybe totally resolved? And I might not realize that yet. And I might still be kind of acting through something or some type of emotional parameters that are no longer relevant. One thing that this new moon in Aquarius deals a lot with is detaching from previous emotional parameters that have no more relevance. So perhaps having difficult parental relationships, and you continue acting the way you did in your family house when you don't live in your family house anymore. It's not a relevant emotional parameter anymore. And this new moon in Aquarius is going to really demand that we get up to speed with who we are now and what our setting is now. And are the parameters that we have in place for that setting really giving us what lines up, what aligns with it, so living off in your own house, yet still kind of acting as you did when you were living in your family house. It doesn't line up, it doesn't really make sense. We have to really understand how to adjust and adapt. And it's almost like some of us even have to fixate on it, or we have to really get that fixed Aquarius mentality on okay, what do I have to adapt into now? The alignments that happen under this new moon in Aquarius are pretty wild, all right? We talked all about that last week, and I want to kind of dig into it more at the personal level. So I want you guys to really think about alignment, okay? We talked about the theme of unconventional last week, and this week I want to move from unconventional into alignment. And why am I connecting these things together? Because on one hand, one of the only ways to connect with the energies right now is to understand the unconventional nature of how you've gotten to where you are now, but also to find more alignment through it. So when we think of unconventional, like we talked about last week, and in the Mercury retrograde video as well, I'll link that below too. When we think about unconventional, we think of something that's not really lining up with other people or the way that things are typically done or the status quo. And Aquarius is going to kind of change up that tone of unconventionality. It's going to really make the unconventional conventional. And it's going to do that through taking your focus towards the unconventional aspects of your own life and shining a light on that and showing how to line it up, yet maintain what has been good about it. So refining the things that you have come to have is a beautiful way to be channeling this new moon in Aquarius. And to also think of your physical form too. Aquarius is not a sign that deals much with physical form, although it was traditionally ruled by Saturn. What Aquarius deals more with is the physical form and it's processes of changing. Okay, it's getting from Capricorn to Pisces, which deals with actually decomposition. Okay, so there is a decomposing process in the Aquarian archetype that's really important to consider. So there are some things that might be decomposing in your life. There might be some things that are rusty. I talked about the sense of vacancy, the sense of abandonment, even that some people might feel with this, and how it starts to kind of run things down, or it starts to decompose. And these things need attention, and these things need a new type of alignment. Vacant houses, abandoned houses, as a sort of analogy or metaphor into some of our emotions as well. What haven't we faced? What haven't we looked at? What needs have we pushed to the back of our conscious, of our conscious minds, and kind of allowed a vacancy to permeate and create a sort of rundown emotional spectrum. This has to be breathed. We have to breathe new freshness into what we feel, into what needs we feel have not been met. And we have to find ways to meet them, and we can get creative with this process. So one of the most beautiful ways to go through this new moon in Aquarius happily, okay, is to understand how you can creatively meet needs that you were previously restricted from, or previously tied back, because we had all that Capricorn energy, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in 2020, which would have kind of tied us up or restricted some of our mobility or freedom. And the Aquarius energy is really going to change this, okay? And roundabout, it can also create new restrictions because it is traditionally a Saturn sign. But I think that it really pays such close attention. The energy of Aquarius really pays so much attention to what Capricorn restricted, and it tries really hard to blow that away, okay? And when I say blow it away, like I'm thinking of like the air element of Aquarius, like a gust of wind, blowing wind that becomes so strong that it can get destructive, okay? I don't know if you guys have seen, there's been a lot of like on different social media platforms, videos of windstorms and tornadoes, and some of them are funny, but some of them aren't, and the wind is already really picking up. And you could kind of think about that with your own emotional spectrum as well, because again, we're having this new moon. And another reason that I wanted to really focus on the new moon and give it its own video, even though we've talked about Mercury retrograde and we've talked about the entire Aquarius stellium, I wanted to look at it specifically because I think that it really gets us emotionally on the playing field of the Aquarius stellium. I think a lot of us still haven't adjusted to it yet. I think that a lot of us are still living in that Capricorn energy, and we're not yet up to speed with the Aquarius energy. So we have a lot of work to do when it comes to getting up to speed with what terrain we're really walking on, maybe even physically, but especially emotionally with this new moon, you know? I think that a lot of us may not really have a really strong understanding of like where we stand socioeconomically even, or where we get our energy from, or again, energy sources that we've been dealing with since like 2017 and especially 2018 when Jupiter went into Scorpio. We started really looking at energy sources, like where am I getting, the fuel to motivate my day? Where am I getting the emotional motivation to motivate my goals? And now that Jupiter has come into a quarter return from that position, it has something to offer. Like it's discovered something. It's found something of an energy source that can be very healing. And we decide whether we're going to wield that, okay, with this phase of Jupiter in Aquarius. And this new moon gives us that emotional realization of this. We decide if we're going to wield this new energy source in a particular way. Like, okay, am I going to focus towards a goal? Am I going to focus towards a relationship? Am I going to focus to previously unmet needs? Where am I putting it? Where am I putting this energy? The freedom of Aquarius is a blessing, obviously, but it does give us that decision-making process, which is why I prepped you guys for like a year over on Patreon about discernment, right? And really understanding, okay, yeah, that's a good field or industry or relationship or personality type for me. That isn't, okay? Because this is where we actually start seeing results of discernment, okay? And particularly over the oncoming year, that gets a lot stronger, okay? Even with this new moon in Aquarius, there's still kind of like, I'm still kind of in that emotional decision-making process, but you might make an emotional decision, okay, during this new moon in Aquarius. And when I say make an emotional decision, I mean maybe like a pretty big one. Like I'm not just talking about, I kind of feel like getting out of bed. I kind of don't feel like getting out of bed. I'm talking about bigger things like, yeah, I think that I'm going to totally change my industry. I think I'm going to totally move across the world or something because of my emotional status now. So it's possible that some might be having to go into that discernment process with a situation that's really big like that. Big situations, right? With this Aquarius stellium, it's really possible. It's really likely because we have so much planetary force that nobody's life can really be on the other side of this Aquarius stellium the same as it was before. And we can really choose whether that's a positive or negative experience. Not even positive or negative, whether it's, what do I want? I want to say, like, I'm just going to have to put it into terms like whether it's an easy or a hard experience, okay? Or whether it's a rewarding or a sapping experience. And I think that might be the biggest test that we go through right now is that choice, am I going to make this easy or hard? Am I going to make this positive or negative? Am I going to make this rewarding or sapping? Because it does feel like this is really a matter of perception, not so much a matter of like material reality, like whether something is a reward or not, whether something is good or bad in your life. This is not always the case, and there are definitely exceptions, but we often get into habits or patterns about reminiscence. Okay, so reminiscent experiences, like, okay, maybe you have a certain momentum or a certain pattern in your life where you get to like this point, which then like motivates you to be involved in this or that over here. What am I trying to say is it's like we can start to attach emotions to things that remind us of other things which are actually not related. So like the references that we're drawing are really important to just notice, because maybe this could actually all be a lot easier. Like, especially if you're someone, let's talk about people who are really struggling right now. Specifically people who have a decent amount of stability at the end of the day, who yet still feel a lot of chaos and struggle right now. This is very prevalent, I've noticed. What is that coming from? I think it's coming from not allowing the shifts that you needed in the past. So knowing that something or some territory or some focus in your life was not really necessary or not really needed, yet feeling a sort of status quo need to prolong it for safety, for future resilience. And now you can have like a sort of lingering Goliath of an experience that only exists because of really pushing before. And the Aquarius stellium is going to demand a little bit more freedom with it, and it's going to demand getting creative. And even if you have something like that in your life where you've maybe like overcommitted, or you have a lot of results from something that you valued more in the past than you do now, I think that you don't want to give up sources of energy or sources of value in your life. It's not about just totally walking away from things. You know, this could be a marriage or a job or a relationship, or any of those things could be an expression of this dynamic that's happening right now. It's not about just walking away or ending those experiences, but I do think that they need some type of resurgence or some type of maybe even lesser focus. So this is an interesting thing that I've been noticing lately, is like our focus is everything. Where our focus is in life is perceived differently now than it was before, and it's almost more focused. What am I trying to say though? So like previously, where you might have really focused on your career or your side hustle or whatever, and that focus might have felt like, okay, I'm just focusing on making my future better, and I make it happen, and it's a part of my life, and but it's like maybe a sideways component. What am I trying? Okay, so I'm trying to illustrate something important here. Like being in a career that you don't like, focusing on that career or that you tolerate just to like pay the bills, and knowing that it's like getting you somewhere better in the future, yet your entire focus is on this career. It doesn't really work that way now in this energy. So where you focus is going to be where you go. So you can't really slot in this career or this income as a mechanism to get you elsewhere. That is possible. Some people can still do it. It's actually quite an Aquarian concept. But we have to also remember that we're coming from a huge Capricorn stellium that's going to have effects on people for the rest of their lives. And what we kind of locked into with that time has a momentum to it also. So a lot of us are stuck in the crossfire of that dynamic of, okay, what I've focused on being like my future, and the other things that I want not maybe being able to coexist. Like, how can certain things coexist is a big question coming up. And microcosmically, so individually, in each person, I feel that there is a need to embrace a new type of coexistence, or to embrace and focus on what you really want, okay? Without feeling like you have to walk away from everything. We have to really watch out for getting like monastic with this, becoming a monk, like rejecting everything that we have and focusing on one thing is also not the key, right? It's like that middle ground that we really have no choice but to find now. You know, we've been looking at themes of extreme thinking, you know, having to be totally on one side or totally on the other side, and the perils of that. And now I think that it is really about middle ground and our focus being on something more than what we have, but at the same time, not devoting everything to vehicles toward that focus, but really starting to look at the focus now. That's really, I think, the best way to describe it is we might have been thinking that in order to get where we want to be, we have to focus on the vehicle that gets us there. But if you can imagine like getting into your car and driving, just focusing on your steering wheel and not on what's in front of you, that's probably the best comparison I can draw is the vehicle is not the focus. Where are we really going? Where are we really going? And I'm talking really personally here and about like autonomy and things like that. This is a beautiful, beautiful new moon to really feel out where you're going and what it takes to get where you're going, to navigate yourself, okay? To navigate your journey to where you're going. And you could also realize in this new moon in Aquarius, with the surrounding Aquarius stellium, that you might have been lost for a while, or that you're really out of the, the typical path to get somewhere. And I think that just has to become an adventure. I don't think that you can get too upset about it, because what good is it going to do, to get out of, cell phone service where your GPS isn't working off on some street in your vehicle and just like, have a temper tantrum over it. Like, what good is it going to do? We've got to get into the vehicle. And yes, a lot of us have a weird, back road to navigate out of. I do feel that pretty strongly, and that Pisces season is going to be a lot of that. Okay. Pisces season is going to deal a lot with, the symbol that I'm feeling for it is like being out of service, being out of connectivity. And, really perhaps, and there's different levels of this for different people and for different experiences. Some people it's a little bit more severe than others, and for others it's just kind of like fun. Different people respond to things like that very differently. Some people get lost when they're driving somewhere and they're not really concerned about it. All roads lead back to somewhere. That's really the best mindset if you can summon that within yourself. But some people really get nervous when they get also out of service and disconnected from like a GPS or disconnected from a grid. That can be really nerve-wracking for some people, and they can really almost just want to like put their head in their hands, and not look at where they're at. So that's also really possible right now for more people than we might expect. And even some of us who are usually that confident, trailblazing Sagittarian type of person is like, yeah, I'm not afraid to be, off here and there and to find my way through. More people than we know like that are actually a little bit nervous about the level of disconnection that is happening, because something that we didn't cover much in last week's video was about the detachment of Aquarius. What does detachment mean? Especially at an emotional level, but even at a physical level. Like, that's basically what I'm talking about with this example, is being detached from the path, or detached from the momentum that you expected. It's just a part of this archetype. It's a part of this Aquarian archetype. So if we find ourselves in like a level of detachment, like maybe we're in a plan or in a path, and it's like, this is how you do that path, but we're like totally off of that, or totally like discombobulated or disconnected from like a typical way of doing something. I think this is so nerve-wracking for a lot of people, but it's just going to have to be, coming back to that central theme of unconventional, it's going to have to be part of the learning process and part of the learning curve, because that's something else that's really coming up, is like the learning curve and trial by fire, trial by error. We do make mistakes, don't we? So perfectionism is so poorly tolerated by the Aquarian energy. Again, this is like a quincunx to Virgo and Cancer, which are two very perfectionist signs. So it's totally out of context with themes of perfectionism. So any type of perfectionist tendency, the need to have every I dotted, every T crossed, everything perfectly prepared, everything done the right way, is asking for trouble with this energy. Okay, you've really, again, it's not to say that sloppiness is encouraged. It's not to say that you can just like totally stop caring about logistics and like rules and things like that. But it's saying that with a baseline, with a foundation, with a certain integrity, you do also have to like take a leap of faith, or you have to detach and disconnect from perfectionism, or you're never going to let yourself through. You're never going to let yourself expand either. And Jupiter is in Aquarius now, so we have a lot of, I feel like, personal expectations with expansion, and having a type of expansion that is maybe not typical, or is somehow different from how we've previously experienced expansion. So on that note, I'm going to shift up in this video a little bit, and I'm going to talk more about moving forward with this new moon and going through the month ahead with this new moon. So during the time of the new moon, around, February 11th and 12th, so that whole week, like February 11th through February 17th, is going to be very logistic. Okay, so there is really not a lot of like physical problems or physical issues to deal with, I don't think, for many people. But what there is to deal with is mindsets. Okay, and what we're convincing ourselves of, what standards, ethics, procedures we're setting for navigating our life. Especially if you have anything that's like really murky. So any huge part of your life that you don't trust or that you don't feel right about, this new moon in Aquarius should make it click. And I feel that it kind of goes one of two ways. So either it can cause sort of a ceremonial shift to happen. So there can be like a sort of personal reimagining that starts with this new moon in Aquarius, like anything from appearance changes to, changes in mantra or themes or like personal mottos. And that will probably stretch through Pisces season before it's really like finalized and understood. But it really, like, the catalyst or the stimulus might happen during this new moon with that. And the other possibility is that things just really click into trust, okay? Even without the change, even without like the physical clicking, it happens mentally. Okay, again, Aquarius is a fixed air sign. It's about mentality, mindsets, tendencies, and how we sort of make formulas in our mind, like this plus this equals this, emotionally, or what have you. So this new moon in Aquarius is really, at the end of it all, is striving to give us a new formula. So that should be coming in really quick right at the outset of this new moon in Aquarius. As we're waxing up to the full moon, okay, moving to a super wholesome full moon in Virgo. I'm just kind of looking at that chart. The incredible Pisces Virgo axis in Pisces season, leading up to February 27th on that full moon, February 26th as well, that general time period. The level of which we can like spiritually comprehend ourselves after clicking into trust with this new moon in Aquarius and then moving up over these next few weeks. The level of understanding and self-cognition, I want to call it, is meant to pinnacle that process, okay? So moving past Pisces season, and I think I'm going to make a video about Pisces season. I'll for sure be talking about it on Patreon, which I'll link below too. The process of this Pisces season is one of the most incredible like ending phases I've ever seen, because we've just left that very stoic Capricorn stellium, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. We are all having a new beginning to some degree, and we're all forging new connections, new sources of value, new, new ideas of ourselves and our identities. And with that, the previous caricature, the previous persona is kind of dissipating away, okay? Especially in this cycle from new moon in Aquarius to full moon in Virgo, happening from like February 11th to the end of February. So just kind of try to hold as much space for yourself as possible during that few weeks of time, because it's just so tough for a perfectionist, dissatisfied, I almost want to say indulgence through the constant like daily creation of formulaic worst case scenarios. So if I do this or if I do that, and then this happens, and then I have this like a huge paramount chaos on my hands, I feel that there's a big amount of people who are in this mindset. Okay, nothing wrong with being in, I suppose, any mindset, but I just want to point out that there's not really, if you made it through 2020 without having some kind of worst case scenario, or without having some type of very tough experience of like authority or control experienced through another person, I would say you're good. And I would say it's time to ceremonially or even ritually, especially during Pisces season, it's time to just come out of all of those fear-oriented spaces and try to accept that the present calmness or present ease is not going to be threatened by some kind of looming, overshadowed, overarching worst case scenario. And, things really aren't perfect, especially with that full moon in Virgo. And we'll be talking way more about that in the future. I'm not going to focus too much on it in this video, but it just also is connected to this new moon in Aquarius. It's like the lunar cycles. It's not going to feel perfect because, like I said, Virgo and Cancer are the two signs that have the most, or I'll say they are the two signs that have like the least harmony, natural harmony with the sign Aquarius. So the full moon in Virgo, it does not have a lot of context or understanding of how to work with the energy. So we could be feeling that way too. Try to not worry too much about it. Again, perfectionism, fear of not having everything perfectly ordered is a big aspect of this like general time period that we're in, and facing that and creating new formulas and creating new identity or sense of identity, and that ultimately make us just feel more receptive and more earthy. Okay. Again, we've got to offset the air, and that's what full moon in Virgo will do good at the end of February with too. But we've got to offset the cold, sort of frigid and even icy Aquarian gust of energy with a sort of earthy groundedness, which is definitely shown through having a full moon in Virgo. But also now that it's, ox year, and we're in now a 2 year. This year is a 2 in that system. Of course, it is a 5 numerologically, which really helped like warm it up and earthen it up. It's a very, if we're talking just elementally, it's one of the most, what would I say? Like there's just all the elements are actually kind of represented in some way or another. Even though there's a lot of air, we've got a lot of other factors at play that are kind of offsetting that. So I think that it's broad. I think that the opportunities are broad. I think there's a lot of wiggle room and flexibility, especially like in these first few quarters of 2021. There's a lot of flexibility for how you want to move forward. And you might already see some opportunities to kind of focus in and contract or create, spectrums or structures that maybe cause a feeling of constriction, but I don't think that they're really that constricting. It's all about, where you want to stay or how you want to prolong what you're doing. Again, the ox here, we have to take that into account too, which I did a video on Year of the Ox. You can check below in the description box to find that video, or click over to my channel. I'll be there. Because it's really very different. And that's also what we have to remember with this new moon in Aquarius, is that it triggers the Lunar New Year, okay, for ox year. So airy, earthy, receptive, and fluid, adaptable, yet focused energy that we're moving into, which is so contrasting to what we had in 2020. And this new moon in Aquarius is going to start to show us it, okay? Because honestly, like leading up to the new moon in Aquarius, we're still very much energetically in the 2020 Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto vibe. And the new moon in Aquarius will really formally shift that over, okay? So do expect that. And for so many people, that can create sudden, unexpected experiences and all of it. And it's so good for some people, for most people. It can be really perfect for anybody if they would like to have it that way. Again, Aquarius, all of the air signs, they're so perceptual. It's all about cognition and perception and mindsets. So really any reality can be quite abundant, or anything that you're partaking in can be quite abundant. But if it doesn't feel good enough, it's easier than you think also to pivot or to shift. We've been talking a lot about that. And yes, all of this year, it's kind of getting less and less opportune, but it's there. You know, the door is open. I really feel for 99% of people, the door is open, okay, for new experiences, for new people, new relationships, new health, lifestyle considerations, new appearances, new senses of identity, and new mindsets, okay, new levels of ease that you might have never been able to totally embrace before. And that's what it'll show you. It's like, it's been a matter of embracing, okay? It's been a matter of choice, right? It's been a matter of mindset, and the mindset that then leads to actions, that then leads to results, that then leads to realities. So we see like the power of Aquarius in that, like, just how much a mindset, or just how much a consideration, or, you know, like a mental connecting point can change your world. So that's really the individual thing right now. It's a lot to comprehend for a lot of people, because many people don't know of this like sort of superpower that many people have to make choices and to develop a sort of mindset. I want to call it an ease-oriented mindset is an incredible superpower. Okay, because we can have like devastation-oriented mindsets. We can have complexity-oriented mindsets. We can have, you know, pain-oriented mindsets that to get us into this sort of structural approach to outputting energy that, you know, for example, with like a pain-oriented mindset where, okay, how much am I going to suffer to get this goal accomplished? How much am I going to sacrifice to meet my needs as a person? Where every single thing done now becomes a formula like this minus this equals that, you know. My energy when I first wake up in the morning minus the hours that I work at my job equals my paycheck. You get what I mean? That's a very prevalent mindset. Like, I'm sacrificing my energy and my time for money. And it is not probably going away, but this is the power and part of it, which is a mindset thing, can really be adapted to this point of embracing yourself more and stepping into a less scarcity, you know, affected mindset, to the degree that you don't feel like you're making the same sacrifice to work. You know, if it is the case that you need to keep working or you've got a goal, I'm not saying for people to quit working at all. That's not what I'm saying. Because there are some people who like love their jobs, and there are some people who are, you know, getting from point A to point B, and it's not about, you know, totally diverting that effort. But there are mindsets that you can step into, like, instead of that previous formula that I mentioned, like, okay, I wake up in the morning, plus I choose to feel empowerment over where I'm headed and my general momentum, and I choose to treat people with integrity, and that then equals a paycheck or some kind of return. And you might see that with that implementation of mindset that you totally are promoted, or that you somehow karmically walk out of that experience of like work that you don't like. Basically the reason that we get perpetually stuck in like work cycles, energetically and spiritually. There are a lot of other components that I'm not going to get into in this video, but just energetically, we get perpetually stuck in a work cycle because we look at it through the lens of a pain-oriented or scarcity-oriented mindset, a sacrifice-oriented mindset, I sacrifice my time and my energy to have money. And that becomes the mold, and that becomes the sort of accepted structure of one's life. And it can kind of sound depressing when we think about it that way, but I think it's just important to note that what I've noticed in a lot of people that I've worked with, or throughout my own experience, is that getting less attached, so detaching, very Aquarian, detaching from very rigid, set, structural ways of looking at work or looking at money is a great way, through making it a bit more like loving, it's weird how it works, but it really does either just make you enjoy what you're doing more and you accumulate more and then you have more options, or it just totally karmically moves you into a totally different way because your vibration cannot maintain something that is only a sacrifice of self for money. Does that make sense? So you either get promoted or you have more options or you finally move to that new goal, or you just karmically walk into maybe a job that you actually love. It is actually possible to enjoy working or to enjoy like having a business or to enjoy, the process of that and also get a paycheck, like it's all about these mindsets and all about how we consider what we're doing. And we'll talk more about this in the future, but value, self-value, value of your own time, of your own output, of your own sense of time passing and what you do in that passage is a large part of having abundance in life. Okay. It sounds pretty obvious when we're talking about it, but I can even speak for myself. Like I don't sometimes even think that way, or I forget to remember that, most people, a lot of people, there are exceptions, of course, like there are people who really get stuck in tough situations, but they can still benefit from these ideas because it will help them to transform and transmute out. It's crazy how people can karmically walk out of things. I need to make a whole video about it, but my Scorpios listening will have a very good knowledge of this because it's something that Scorpios go through a lot just it's part of their sign journey. But sometimes you'll be in a situation for a long period of time and it gets really repetitive and it gets really, what you think to be like a very regimented and repetitive aspect of your life. Like it feels very secure, I suppose we could say. And then sometimes the weirdest things will happen. Like you'll just look out the window one day and you'll kind of perceive your reality a little bit differently. Or you'll kind of broach this secure repeating thing with a slightly different mindset. And sometimes it will totally just conclude, or it will totally just no longer be a part of your life. And this is never something that's like a punishment from the universe. It's never something that's like a bad thing. It's because you need more space. Like there's something that you need to take on, or there's something that you need to do, that this secure, repeating, regimented aspect of your life is eclipsing or blocking out. So what the universe will often do, especially for like Scorpio people, or people with like strong 8th house or even like 4th house placements, is that it will just like totally eclipse out that blockage or that eclipse. It's an eclipsing of the eclipse that creates a void, and it's hard for us to sometimes accept that, that job loss or that relationship loss or that loss of output. We can get really upset about that. It's not what we strive for in society. Like it does make the theme of like society, for example, a little bit more fluid. It makes it a little bit less predictable or controlled when people are constantly making changes in their energy output or constantly going with that natural flow. So you can see how it might not really be something that we would feel through the lens of typical living to be something positive. Okay. But I really feel that it's something positive. That's what my spiritual experience has led me back to every time, especially as I've done this YouTube channel and as I've worked with it and taken repetitive times, okay, throughout these last few years to come back and like look at things and look at, emotional experiences versus, the world in which we're living. I keep coming back to this, that like things that leave are not like losses. They are opportunities for a new output. Okay. And that for some of us is like all we can rely on at this point in time. And it's really nice to foster a sense of security within that, because then you're really pretty like invulnerable to certain pitfalls. Not everything, of course. Like it's not to say that just with mindsets that we can totally become unhuman. And this is another important distinction for Aquarius, because it's already leading us down this, this path. The Aquarian energy, this new moon in Aquarius is already like, okay, how do we make a less like fearful or less emotional, less like human experience, right? Through like all of these ideas. That's not really the goal either. This is a human experience. There's gonna be an air of unpredictability. There's no person or religion or mindset or philosophy or, science that can totally predict or guarantee human outcomes. Okay, so it's like the human element plays a role in all of this too. So keep that in mind as well. Like, this is not about controlling how we feel. It's just about, like, I think that it's about, trust. And I think it's about trust in that human element at the end of the day. And to the degree that also we are working to gain our selfhood through it, okay? And not just like feeling like we have zero autonomy or zero self fulfillment capacity while we go through these experiences of the human element. So I'm not really sure where all of that's leading me. I think it's just kind of also helping me to understand what I'm doing, like on this YouTube channel. And what I'm like talking through is basically just like the human element and human experience, human condition. And sure, I take a look at it through the planets, through astrology, and through some of these studies, but they are not meant to be something ever that are like totally detaching one from the human condition. Like, okay, because of this transit or because of these things, I now have a solid, controlled idea of my human condition. That's not the goal. We've got to work in ebb and flow, in inhale and exhale with these things. And we can find significance, we can find meaning, but we can't totally change the course of, the human condition. Okay, that's always going to be a factor. And why I'm bringing this up is because I just want you guys to remember that as we're moving through this like super transitional adjustment period, there's no need to go crazy with any type of wild thoughts about somehow being able to be totally in control of what's going on right now, okay? Or being very angry with other considerations, or I guess like philosophies, or trying to develop philosophies or develop ideas that are, totally 100% solutions to like problems. Like, it's a waste of time to a degree, okay? And it's not a lot of the time taking into factor the human element side of things. So with that, I want everyone to enjoy the aspects of their humanity, because I think we're all going to get a few things with this new moon in Aquarius and this entire actually next 2 lunar cycles. So the next 2 months, as we're adjusting, as we're emotionally kind of, starting to feel our new experiences, we're going to adjust, and we're going to really choose how we want things to go ahead in the future. And like I said, those mindsets that we're developing now, that we can really save ourselves a lot of hassle, like we can work with that. And then I think that the best thing on top of it is like, remember the human element of it all too, okay? And try to not get too concerned with also being in control of your reality too. Because I will say, jumping back into the theme of this video, which is new moon in Aquarius, any of you who have known many Aquarius people in your life, or who have known people with very prominent Uranus energy in their chart, you would know that those people are not very controllable, that they're not very traditional or structure oriented. Uranus is naturally a dissolving, kind of like Neptune and Uranus are both in this phase. Now, actually, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, but they're all different sides of this, different video for a different day. But Uranus is one of the energies, Aquarius is one of the energies that deals with the, how do I want to word it? Of something being out of control, okay? Of something being chaotic, of something being buzzing or electric or overwhelmed or overstimulated or done even. So it's just good to know that that is one of the most prominent energies right now. So again, that's why I talk about Virgo and Cancer, the 2 signs that are least harmonious with Aquarius energy, because they're both very controlled, segmented, perfectionist energies that are very neat and very tidy and very rigid in some ways too. So yes, Virgos, people with a lot of Virgo or a lot of Cancer in their chart tend to not feel that this is such a natural energy that we're in right now, or it doesn't come to them quite as naturally as some other energies do. It's not to say that those people can't thrive just as much as anyone else, though. Like, it's totally possible. I think that a lot of us just really have to think about what role control has played in our life, and think about what role, security, structure, Saturnian-oriented themes have played. Because we're all just kind of moving in this sort of rhythmic, electric wave to a comprehension of structure that's a little bit different, okay? A little bit of an evolution happening, really. But I think that the only way to feel benefit through it, or to feel confidence in what it's resulting in, is to open up a little bit more, okay? To open up the feelings a little bit more, to open up to what your needs are as a person, and to understand how those can best express, and to also not overcomplicate things or over parameter things, okay? That's another really important part. Like, you can kind of like set parameters or try to build a structure, even like trying to do repairs or trying to do things that like restructure things. It can go really good or not so good too. It's really good to breathe new life into things and to make things new in some way. At the same time, huge structural changes can result in breaking, because there is a rebuking of structure in general in the Aquarius archetype. So it's just good to keep in mind where a lot of us just need a much more flexible, much more fluid, much more destructured way of living for some people. It's not for everyone. And this can come about in like really neat and what I want to say, like contemporary ways, where you kind of offset it, where you have like these new routines, and we sort of built up new routines and new habits and new structures over the last year. And those come in handy now. Those come to really start to be a new representation of your efforts, and that can be ego boosting in a positive way. But yes, I will leave you on a final note that is just new knowledge and new outputs, okay? There has to be something along those lines, I think, for everyone. It does not have to be a total 180 or a total drastic change, although for some it is. But there should, by this point in time with this new moon in Aquarius, be some type of new thing that you're maybe involved in or working on, some type of new course of study, some type of new job, some type of new routine, some type of new sense of identity. If you are feeling like nothing has really changed, because it's not going to be that way for everybody, I would just really sit with yourself and ask yourself what you want out of life. What do I want as a person? What are my wants? Are all those accomplished? Usually humans who are alive do not feel that all of their wants are totally accomplished, because that wanting is part of what keeps the life force, motivating. So whatever you do, try to just move towards something you want, especially something constructive, okay? Something that can build you more. We're at a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, so we're building like the next 20-year platform right about now. So it's good to think long-term, but to not get trapped by the parameters of future-oriented mindsets, that balance that we're all in right now. And on that note, everyone, enjoy the new knowledge and the new sort of mindsets, I guess, that this transit can bring in. I've really enjoyed coming on today. We're just about to hit an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Yes, thank you so much to Keen for sponsoring this video. Again, that link is right below in the description box. And you can help to support this channel by checking that out. Again, I'm not doing private readings myself right now. I just don't have the time. But there is a service that I have included, Keen, where you can find an advisor and check out, some consultation or advising. And yes, thanks so much to Keen. And on that note, everyone, have a wonderful experience of New Moon in Aquarius. There's a lot of other information in the description box, and I'll see you guys next week for another live premiere. And I have a lot of other content as well on my channel that you can check out, as well as on my Patreon page. It's all below. Much love, everyone. Bye.